Morning everybody from snowy Sapporo, and this video is part 2 in a best Sapporo Miso Ramen video mini series, I guess, if you want to call it that. Beautiful day here in Sapporo, cold of course, and perfect for Miso Ramen. And the first place I'm on my way to now is where Miso Ramen started. Historical place and a must visit here in Sapporo. This is 5 AM Ramen, your dedicated ramen channel in Japan. I'm Frank and I'm on a perpetual ramen diet. This is the 4th video in an epic Hokkaido ramen series. Hokkaido is Japan's big island in the north, which is famous for its ridiculously tasty ramen. At the center of this ramen island is Sapporo, Hokkaido's capital and largest city. This is where we are now, Sapporo City, and we're here to devour its best miso ramen. In the last video, we already sampled some of Sapporo's best miso ramen, but there's simply too much to feature in just one video. So we're continuing the miso ramen feast today. I start the day the same way I did yesterday, with a little breakfast to tease my stomach. I can never say no to a nice croissant. And from here, we're diving straight into miso ramen. We're starting off strong too. The first place we're visiting is where miso ramen apparently originated, Aji Nosampe. They have a history going back to 1950. There are several urban legends surrounding the first bowl of miso ramen that they served. One of them involves a drunk customer requesting noodles in their miso soup. And this eventually evolved into the first miso ramen, or so they say. Urban legends aside, Aji Nosampe blazed a miso-laden trail for everyone to follow. Their current location in Sapporo is quite interesting. You need to go into this department store building up to the 4th floor. Aji Nosampe has a little space in the corner of the 4th floor, surrounded by stationery items that are sold there. Now I've really seen it all. There's no ticket machine here. You simply verbally tell them what you want. They've got shoyu, shio, and spicy miso ramen. But we're here to eat some history, their legendary miso ramen. It's not as heavy as miso ramen can get these days. The pork bone soup isn't overly rich, but it's not exactly light either. On top are nice stir-fried veggies. This has become the standard in Sapporo miso ramen. Thick wavy noodles have also become the standard. And here is my recap of this bowl on the ground. I feel like I'm at a ski resort or something. It's funny walking around the city in these mountains of snow and these little paths carved through them to get through for pedestrians like me. Pedestrians / ramen hunters. Now that bowl at Aji Nosampe. When I arrived at 11:45, I walked right in. 12 o'clock, there was a lineup on the benches inside and outside the ramen restaurant in what is, again, an interesting location. Now, I, of course, went with the go-to miso ramen. And in terms of flavor, it's interesting. This is probably as close to classic miso ramen as it was in the very beginning because, of course, Aji Nosampe, they invented it. It was, of course, heavier than miso soup. There was a lot of lard in there. There were strong flavors coming from garlic in particular. But compared to other bowls here, more modern miso ramen bowls, let's say, definitely more mellow, definitely simpler in a way, more classic. Also, in the soup, the miso flavor, of course, was there, but it wasn't as prominent as it might be with some other bowls out there. There was a little bit of sourness in the soup. The noodles were very thick, though, to pick up that classic, but pretty lardy broth. In terms of toppings, you had minced pork. You also had a lot of stir-fried onion and bean sprouts. Nice and smoky, and also a good amount of negi. Nice flavors, simple, frozen in time ramen that locals clearly love. Gotta respect Aji Nosampe. We wouldn't be where we are now if we didn't have them. Indeed. If Aji Nosampe was responsible for the first wave of Sapporo miso ramen, these next 2 ramen shops were responsible for the heavier second wave. This second wave ushered in a richer, pork lardier miso ramen. And it's kind of an interesting story because Jun Ren and Sumire, they come from the same family. Some people call it Sumire style, some people call it Jun Sumi style. But Jun Ren, the place I'm visiting, was set up by one of the sons of the original Jun Ren / Sumire owner. And Sumire was set up by the other son, Sumire, I think as a brand has become a little bit more famous. But in terms of the roots, the reason that they're called Jun Ren and Sumire is simply the way that the characters are read. So in a way, they're one and the same, but Jun Ren is a little bit different from Sumire. And I'm now visiting Jun Ren. Hopefully that made some sense. So what I end up doing is visiting both Jun Ren and Sumire. I thought it would be fun to compare and contrast their miso ramen back to back. Here's me doing exactly that, recapping both Jun Ren and Sumire's second wave miso ramen. I was debating whether to go to Sumire because on the one hand, I've been to Sumire many times, including in Hokkaido. But on the other hand, I was like, I haven't been to their honten, or their headquarters, their flagship shop. And I decided to visit, but I chickened out a little bit and I ordered the half ramen. Still a good sized ramen though, and very convenient if you don't want a whole bowl. It's only 600 yen. It's a nice looking shop, it's fancy. It's like some tech company's campus, but with a more modern, brutalist style to it. Almost like a ramen lair, with friendly vibes of course. So I was happy to visit, and you can tell like how Sumire, just from the headquarters, I mean they've become a very successful brand. Jun Ren has also been successful, but Sumire has more shops and greater brand awareness. Another big reason I wanted to visit was because I just ate at Jun Ren. If anything, having the bowls back to back, I could better make out the differences. And naturally, they're very similar, but Jun Ren does have a meatier broth. It's a more porky broth, let's say. Even though that clear layer of pork lard is thicker at Sumire, the overall flavor is milder at Sumire. You kind of feel like they were working to make it a little bit gentler. Whether that was for wider mass appeal or not, it's gentler. And Jun Ren was kind of like, our ramen's messy, and that's fine. Another small difference is that peppery kick that you get at Jun Ren. You don't get that at Sumire. And there's something about the meat at Jun Ren that was really good. So it really depends on what you're after. Both very similar bowls. However, if you want a meatier, more in-your-face miso ramen, Jun Ren would have your name on it. If you want something that is a little bit milder, but with a thicker layer of lard, and maybe a stronger brand, go with Sumire. You don't need to be a ramen idiot like me and necessarily have both. Before our final miso ramen shop of the day, a heads up. I've put together another tasty premium instant ramen pack that you can order from Instant Ramen Japan. If you order, I'll be sure to include Jun Ren's and Sumren's official instant ramen. Just like I did today, you can compare and contrast these two. They're perfect for a rainy day, or any day for that matter. Besides those two, instant miso ramen, your pack will include another awesome 3 ones that aren't miso based. I'll surprise you. To order this special pack, use the coupon code JUNSUMI at checkout so we know what to send you. Details in the description below. Actually, one more thing before we visit our final ramen shop of the day. I usually don't have a lot of time in between bowls on these ramen trips because I'm running around from shop to shop. But I did have a chance to go up to the top of the Sapporo TV Tower. There are a lot of towers like this across big Japanese cities, and they were all built around the same time. There is a fee to go to the top, but once you're at the top of the observatory, you get a great view of the city. I got some great B-roll here as well. The view from the top of Sapporo TV Tower includes Odori Park. This is where Sapporo holds its annual snow festival. Close by is the Sapporo Clock Tower. It's become a symbol of the city. There's a museum inside too. I think this clock tower is a good representation of Hokkaido's younger history and Western influence. Okay, back to ramen. We're visiting Shingen for our final stop. They're a super popular miso ramen shop in Sapporo. Well, technically, their flagship shop, or honten, is right above Sapporo, in Ishikari City. But we're visiting the more centrally located Sapporo shop. They have shoyu, shio, miso, and spicy miso ramen on the menu. You're probably noticing a pattern here. And the miso ramen is what we're getting. White miso holds up a lovely pork bone soup. Unlike Junsumi style, there isn't that thick layer of clear pork lard on top. But the soup here is milky rich. I hadn't ordered any miso ramen with butter and corn up to now, so I'm remedying this now. And here are my thoughts on our final miso ramen bowl of the day. at Shingen. I somehow managed to squeeze in another bowl. I'm struggling a bit more than normal, I think, up here in the north, just because the bowls are so big, the noodles so thick when it comes to miso ramen. But that half size at Sumire did help, even though I would say it was more like 3/4. And this last bowl at Shingen was great in a different way. And it's described on the menu as having a sort of strong, richer base. And that's what you got. It was a milky, very miso forward. The miso was noticeable, especially the nuttiness. It also tasted very clean. You definitely got the sense that they're not trying to reinvent the miso ramen wheel. There was a simplicity to it. And they've got English menus there too, because of the location. Nice noodles, whole lot of negi, chewy bamboo shoots, 1 slab of chashu pork, and I decided to add butter and corn as toppings on the side. And this whole time I didn't have it, so I was like, all right, I gotta add it. And I already described the soup as being milky, and this was without the butter. The butter, of course, made it more milky in a dairy way. The corn added some sweetness too. In other words, they fit with the soup very well. A great miso ramen shop in Shingen, and this is gonna be our final ramen shop of this miso ramen video and of this 2-part miso ramen in Sapporo series, or mini series. That being said, I'm gonna close this video out here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Otherwise, Frank from 5 AM Ramen going inside, gonna warm up. And do let me know in the comment section which of the 4 in this video, and even in the previous video, you wanna try the most. I'm gonna be continuing this Hokkaido ramen series, so stay tuned for the next video. And in the meantime, take care. There, let that open a little bit. I don't know, it reminds me of the accordion video on YouTube when Darth Vader removes his helmet. Or that other Sith Lord in that, what video game? Which Star Wars video game is that? Anyways, Aji Nosampe.